So before you go on with this question, another key concept to remember with respect to valuation is, with respect to Gordon growth model is, so this G is the sustainable growth rate. One of the ways of calculating this sustainable growth rate is a formula which is known as ROE into retention ratio. Retention ratio is 1 minus payout ratio. So for example, if a company pays 60% as dividend, 40% would be the retention rate. ROE is the return on equity. So this is one way of getting it, but we do not always use it. Why? Because this is very variable. So you would see ROE being highly variable or volatile in most of the companies. You will see retention ratio being changing. So for sustainable growth rate, we take a growth rate which is expected to be sustained forever after a particular period of time. And generally we use real GDP growth rate. But for now, for this question, use this formula ROE into retention rate. So do this question, please. Again, do it on Excel and add 0 plus 1 till 3. So second is listing down the dividends. So dividends 2 in year 0, then it grows at 10% for the next 3 years. So that means growth rate for 10 years is 10%. So I increase it at 10% plus, and I log the cell because for all of these 3 years it will remain be 10%. Then terminal value, because I am not forecasting dividend beyond 3, so I need to have a terminal value at the end of 3rd year. For that terminal value, I need sustainable growth rate beyond 3rd year. How do I get that? I will take retention rate and ROE, and based on that I will calculate sustainable growth rate. So retention rate is 50% and ROE is 10%. 50% and 10%. If I multiply these two, it will give me sustainable growth rate which is 5%. Now I will calculate terminal value here. So formula would be this dividend multiplied by 1 plus growth rate, which is 5%. Beyond this 3, growth rate will remain be 5%. Divided by R minus G. For that I need R as well. So I will copy R from here. Required rate of return on equity is 8%. Required rate of return on equity can be different from return on equity. Those two are different. So this multiplied by 1 plus growth rate divided by R minus G. Any confusion so far? Then we take sum of cash flows or cash flow dividend or whatever you call it. I will ignore today's dividend. Why? Because this has already been paid. So this won't impact the value. Value is dependent on the future cash flows. We will only take future cash flows and not what has already been paid. And we calculate present value. For present value, simply the same formula, equals to PV. Rate is 8%. Period here. Payment nothing. Future value negative of this. End of the period. I will lock the rate cell because rate wouldn't change, and I will start it. Then value as of today would be sum of all these present values. It is 80.2. Any problem so far? So 80.2 is your answer. This is how we do it, and then you compare it with the current price, which is $90. Current price is high, that means your value is low, price is high, which means it is overvalued and you should sell.